Hello and welcome to this India Hangout. The question we are asking today is India geared for real and true innovation in the manner that we know it or have experienced it around the world? Joining me in this Hangout are four individuals who have contributed to the process of innovation in their own ways and in some ways set the benchmark in this country. I'm joined by Jas Gulati, CEO and co-founder, Acharya, CEO and co-founder of MapMyGenome, a fascinating company, Sharad Sharma, co-founder and torchbearer of iSPIRT and the whole innovation movement, and InnoFest, a festival that's coming up at the end of the week in Bangalore. Samder Singh who works with the Minister of State for Finance out of Delhi. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much for joining us. So the question that we are obviously first trying to address here is, can India innovate? And Sharad, why don't you start off?
Clearly, India can innovate. But what's happened is that in the last few years, so we've gone through these periods. First, we didn't have belief that India could innovate. Of late, I think we've got carried away a little bit with this copy-paste kind of an entrepreneurship model. And that is kind of polluting the minds of our young people, because they feel maybe innovation is not needed. All that we need to do is copy-paste. And that's not very helpful. So in some sense, all of us are getting together to say, hey, let's seize the innovation agenda back and fulfill the potential that India has with respect to innovation. So in short, yes, India can innovate.
Right. So Samder, this is, it seems like an interesting, Samder, bridge that the government is trying to build with this. And I saw Jayant's name as one of the patrons and drivers for this whole initiative. So tell us more about it from your vantage point.
So government is also a major participant in the ecosystem. And if you look at how government of India recently doing some very innovative thinking in promoting entrepreneurship in the country. For example, government is trying to boost the venture capital industry in India through various initiatives like fund of funds. We also we are making good progress with the Department of Science and Technology. A lot of incubation centers across the country are now promoted and supported by DST, and Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Skill Development is promoting skill development at a national scale so that we can equip our young generation to participate in Make in India, Digital India, and Skill India initiatives.
Right. So, Samder, how is this, or how are you trying to stitch this together? I was reading Jayant's column in the Economic Times. That also talked about all the various ecosystem players, including, of course, the funders, a very critical component like SIDBI. So, but from your point of view, how is this sort of coming together?
So, for one example, as you read in the article, and Sharad also mentioned, is the InnoFest. So, it's a festival of innovation where all the ecosystem partners, for example, innovators, entrepreneurs, venture capital funds, government of India are coming together to help each other, to listen each other, and to promote innovation. So we need a platform where people can interact with each other, and I think InnoFest is a great initiative in that pursuit.
Right. So, Sharad, how does this, I mean, there are lots of conferences held, but if we were to try and highlight the one or two things that really help trigger off an ecosystem, not that the ecosystem isn't there already, but to provide the next generation or the next round of triggers, what would they be or what could they be?
Get out of the way, and make ease of doing business. Was this question for me? I'm sorry, did I jump in? So one is ease of doing business has to happen. Second is that it's very important that government play a role of a market maker, buying from innovative companies and innovators, and that can be done through challenge grants. That is an important piece. Third, everywhere in the world, innovation requires public funding. And that has to be put in place. Today, all that public funding is going into CSIR and other government institutions, which is a good thing, but we have to supplement that with other kinds of public funding that's going to power innovation. And the fourth is that we must create early stage capital in areas where there isn't enough available. So outside of e-commerce, neighborhood commerce, areas that need funding but are not getting funding, we must create pools of capital that supplement private capital on a funds of funds basis. And I'm happy to report that government has actually made a lot of progress on that.
Right.
These are the four areas
Right.
to drive innovation in India.
Right. Anu, let me come to you. Can you sort of briefly take us through your journey in trying to build a company that is focused on something as unusual as genome mapping, and trying to tell people that it's really your genes that will help you or help us understand what's potentially wrong with you and how you could potentially prevent future diseases or future ailments?
So just as a fact, this is my second venture. So this idea came about was that we're already working on the genomics field for the last 15 years. And when I was looking at the potential impact it could have on people, you looked at, you looked everywhere, you looked at in the US and other places, there were companies that were trying to build these large, NHS was trying to do something for the UK. You had Decode in Iceland that was trying to build the whole and understand the entire Iceland population. But there was in Indians, in spite of being so prevalent, we have more than 1 billion people. We didn't really understand our own genetic makeup. So I think there was that was a motivation saying, can we actually understand what genetic diversity actually exists amongst the Indian population? But the second thing was that, can we actually do this while actually convincing people to be healthy? Because if you look at what is happening with our current healthcare systems, and you look at where what the medical establishments are trying to do today, the challenges in the next 20 years we will not be able to solve if we were to just focus on treatment rather than on prevention. So I think putting these two things together, we said, how do we use what we have in terms of technology, but be able to build something that can be potentially large, right, and be able to change how we actually address for the Indian population. That's how we got started.
Right, right. Thanks for that, Anu. So, Jas, can I come to you again? If you could walk us through your journey, and where do you see yourself in the innovation spectrum in terms of where you began and where you are today?
Sure. So, we started about 3 years back, and one of the things we realized was that there's millions of small businesses and local businesses in India, but they really had no way to come online in a meaningful manner so that they can benefit from their online presence. And about 3 years back, we started with really trying to understand what is a small business comfortable with. I mean, what sort of technology usage is pervasive in the small businesses, and that's where we started, where we were able to create a platform which helped anybody to create their own online presence, which is a website which is run, created and managed through a bunch of SMSs. 3 SMSs gets you a website, and the 4th SMS onward gets you content on that site. And that was 3 years back. Today, of course, we've completely moved to an app model. We see 70% of our almost 100,000 customers that we have in India using the app. Very, very pervasive app. Data technology is available. People are no longer shying away from using their smartphones to do stuff which they weren't even doing about 1.5 years back. So the journey is really been of really finding out what would have worked for small businesses over the last 3 years, and we've grown with them. We've innovated with small businesses. We've understood what their psyche is, why would they want to get online, how easy it is for them to get online, and finally, how easy it is for them to understand that they're getting benefits of being online. And we do that all as a core DNA of what we do as a company.
Right. So, Jas, I was going through your site. So, you had a case study of a car dealership company who uses your technology and has grown in terms of visibility. Now, is this sort of a dual, innovation? In the sense, you're doing your innovation on the product side, and but equally, your customers have to innovate themselves in some ways, because they have to try and figure out how to adopt this technology to reach traditional audiences or traditional customers who may or may not be online.
Very interesting. This is this particular customer sells second-hand premium cars, and and there's a little joke inside Nowfloats that if we were to measure just his GMV, we would be $1 billion company, because he sells Bentleys and BMWs through our platform. But I think the point that you're making is amazing. The fact that, and that ties up to the theme of this talk as well. If you allow people, give them tools to do simple stuff, behaviors which they already have, and for example, a WhatsApp conversation, if you're allowed to give them a platform which allows them to take a picture of the car that they're selling and instantly upload to their site, that is a behavior which you will see them deploy, and they will innovate on top of you. They will not stop. We see so many examples of people, just picking up our platform and doing things that we had not thought of, that we had not even thought of building as we started out in this journey. And then that's the amazing part. I mean, this particular customer sells, about 10 cars a month through us, and each one in a 50 lakhs category.
Right. And that really brings us to the next point in our discussion. I'm saying, so what holds us back? I mean, is it mind or matter? So let me put that question first to Sharad. How do you see this dilemma, if it is one, Sharad?
Mind versus matter. I don't know whether I can frame it like that. See, my view of innovation is slightly different.
So what I mean, Sharad, is it the physical, I mean, we spoke just the other day about the lack of a certain public goods which could foster an ecosystem of innovation, the classic example being Silicon Valley, which we don't have in India, versus, let's say, just the mind, and everything that it can do.
I think now I understand what you're saying. So I think there is an individual aspect to this, and there is a public goods aspect. And so how do the two kind of tie up together? So the individual aspect is, first, of course, is imagination. You got to envision something new. Now, when you apply, and that is creativity, isn't it? And if you apply that creativity to solve a problem, then you get a solution. Now, I may get a solution that I think is unique to me, but it may not be unique to the world. Innovation is when you are able to turn that solution, when you apply that creativity and create a unique solution, which is not just unique to me, but is unique for the world. And that requires, it's a disciplined process. That requires access to public goods. It requires something called combinatorial innovation, where you can use Lego parts of things that have already happened earlier, and you can build on the top of that, rather than having to, if you're making a new car, you don't start by making a wheel, because you buy the wheel from somewhere. So you focus your energy in some parts of that car that you can innovate in. So similarly, public goods play a big role because they give you this repository of goods that are available on which you can build on, and then add your own piece. And while you get a new thing, a unique solution available. So that is the role of public goods. And so to answer your question, individual mindsets and minds are very important. Disciplined process is very important, but the existence of public goods is important too. And I think in India, we are rich in imagination and creativity. So that's not a problem. Disciplined process is a problem, as Professor Rishi Krishnan points out very eloquently in his innovation books. And of course, public goods are important. When all of these come together, that's when magic happens.
Right. So, Samder, mind or matter? I mean, you're anchored at the GSP Stanford, which obviously is a classic sort of melting pot of mind as well as matter, if I could put it that way. And how do we transplant, or if so, that model to what extent in India?
So, Govind, we need to look at a couple of points. For example, when we compare Bangalore with Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv, we certainly have more number of developers in Bangalore compared to Valley and Tel Aviv. But at the same time, we don't have that much number of venture capital investors or seed investors. And neither we don't have that much number of startups coming out of these places. And there are a lot of factors. For example, as you mentioned, Stanford GSP, we don't have a platform right now where people from engineering background can interact with people from law school or management school or medicine school or liberal arts schools or with the corporations as well. So I think we also need that infrastructural support, maybe in terms of internet speed or maybe in terms of network of innovation hubs where we can create a platform where people can come together and discuss about human-centric design thinking. So I think these are like few of the challenges we are facing right now in making Bangalore as big as Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv.
Right. Anul, let me come to you. What's your, if you were to list the 2 or 3 key challenges in getting off the ground, particularly for something in an area that's so sharply defined as yours, what would they be? I mean, what you've overcome as well as what they could be for someone who's starting out now.
So I think clearly being in a niche domain, area, one of the biggest challenges we have is finding, getting the right kind of people in place. We certainly have the mind and the brand and all of that, but even then, the numbers are very small. But the bigger challenge is, I think, for a person starting in genomics in a place like India is always, our counterparts who would have probably not had the 1/4 of the background in this space, or even the people that are there will be able to raise $200 million to then build a fantastic thing. I think the challenge is that when you're in India, you have to first do that and then get to that level. So that would be one of the bigger challenges. And if I was in Silicon Valley, I would have probably, it would be much easier for me to scale that operation much faster. But that's not the only way to build a business. So you can always, you can do it in a slightly more, in a way that will allow you to build that further. But the second challenge obviously will be in terms of getting the right kind of support. And by support, I mean that if there was more transparency or ease of use in terms of the government policies, I think it would make my life a lot easier. Because most people still can't figure out a lot of things, especially when it's a non-IT related.
Right. Okay. So let's ask the next question. I mean, without wanting to spend too much time on the challenges, I mean, why India can do it. I mean, I think so. Therefore, the idea being to understand what are the opportunities that we have, and then by bringing together people, ideas, thoughts, and how do we create the right kind of enterprise environment, if we were to call it. Sharad, can I come back to you on that? The question really is, why can we do it? I mean, rather than saying why we cannot do it, why can we do it, and perhaps why is the time ripe at this moment?
At a time when in Silicon Valley the Indians are doing very well, right? You can see that you take an Indian, put them in the right context, and magic happens, right? So I think, of course, there is no doubt we as Indians can do this, right? And what is missing is this environment, this community, this spirit of learning from each other. And that is starting to come together in pockets. We have both Jas and Anu from Hyderabad. It is clearly happening there. Genome Valley is coming up in that part of the world. And some of it is happening here in Bangalore, in Pune. So there are pockets that are starting to form. And so there is no doubt that we can do it. I mean, there is, and if you look at, if you just go to Wikipedia and type in the history of mathematics, and all the way to 1600, from 5000 BC to 1600, you will see every alternate entry is an Indian entry. And then something happens after 1600, it dies, and there are sporadic entries here and there. So there is a long culture, long history of India actually being a power in innovation. And we just have to go back and connect to this all over again. And if we do that, we will rise again to make it happen. Right. That's my belief. That's my dream.
Right. Just what's magical about this moment? I mean, why can things happen now more than ever before, from your perspective?
Surely, I think to borrow from Ashish, we live in interesting times. I just think that there is a scale of the market on one side. We are attractive to the global markets, certainly to our own markets via our own entrepreneurs like never before. I think the fact that we've leapfrogged a couple of generations on technology adoption using the mobile, 900 mobiles or so. We just finished a very interesting journey. We drove from, as a team in Nowfloats, we drove from Amritsar to Kanyakumari in 24 days across 24 cities. And, amazing revelations. I'll tell you one of them, which is going to answer you specifically. We met about 200 small businesses over 24 days. And the number of small businesses who did not have a smartphone, 5. And that's a number which shocked the living daylights of even us, living on top of data, but that's the reality. There are people in Udaipur and Cochin, doing business on their phone. There are people in coaching selling fish on WhatsApp. I think the pervasiveness in which technology has reached the heartlands of the country is a very interesting time that we live in. I think we just have to get up and take this opportunity up. And the base is big. You're talking a large base. Even a drop in this base is just amazing. So very interesting times in my opinion.
Right. And just that example sounds fascinating, about selling fish via WhatsApp. And why not? I can imagine, WhatsApp has been put to use to so many things, and surely selling fish must be one of them. So, and which sort of also brings us to the last point. I mean, where can India really innovate? And it's a very broad brush question, but it can also be interpreted very specifically by our panel today. So, Anu, do you want to go off first? I mean, where can we? I mean, this is not just in your area, but also where else could there be opportunities for innovation where people who are watching this at a later point could take away some inspiration and some thoughts?
Certainly. So obviously, I think healthcare is one of them, and which is why we are in that space. But there are also other areas like I think energy and as well as in different forms of manufacturing that potentially India can innovate. And it is especially great now because we always believed in ourselves, but I think it's high time that others have started believing in us, and I think that's an important piece for all of us to remember. So there are different areas. I think what we need to do is to innovate in smaller areas where people earlier did not think, but they can actually potentially revolutionize entire industries. And I think those would be my top. I think the e-commerce and all have now somewhat saturated. So there are many other industries that I think Indian companies can potentially innovate, especially in the scientific areas.
Right. Okay. Samder, can I come to you? What's the, where would you like to see innovation? This is more of a personal question rather than a sort of institutional question.
So I think, Govind, India can become a hub for innovation for the next 5 billion people. When you look at Silicon Valley, they are hub for top 1 billion people. And if you look at the innovations coming out of India, for example, Arvind Eye Care, Narayana Hridayalaya, Jaipur Fort, like these are the innovations that are changing and disrupting the healthcare industry. And now we are moving into different segments. For example, PTM, what PTM is doing in mobile transaction is amazing. They have already brought 100 million people into the mainstream economy. There is one energy firm I know, Gram Power. They are supplying rural electricity in extreme Rajasthan through solar panels. So we can see different innovations, and we need our own solutions to the bottom of the pyramid. So I think India can become a hub for next 5 billion people in solving major problems in different sectors, including healthcare, energy, financial inclusion.
Right. So, Jas, how do you see this? See the opportunities? I mean, I think you two are clearly focused on the India opportunities. India opportunities in some ways at the middle of the pyramid, if not bottom of the pyramid. Do you see that building? Do you see more such emerging? And also, how do you see opportunities beyond what you're doing currently? What I mean is for other entrepreneurs who might be watching this.
Yeah, so we in fact quite focused on the middle and the bottom, so yeah, I mean the opportunities are immense, and I think from our perspective we believe that getting online in a meaningful way is the first step to it. So certainly we believe in that. But if you broaden that up, I'm going to pick Sharad's one line that he said that the ease of doing business has to improve in the country, and I think that's the starting point of so much more business, so much more innovation yet to come in the country, right? I mean. I always say this, that, the difference between the Valley guys and us is that, we have to, we typically work, I wouldn't say long hours, but typically have to work more to achieve the same outcome, because many of the things that we depend on are not structured and not online. It could be as mundane as traffic to all the way to paying online bills. It just takes a fair amount of effort to live your daily life in the country. And ease of doing business is an opportunity. There are so many fields in which we can improve that. So, we certainly are focused on how do we ease, the ability to do business for a small business owner, to get more customers, and then, to understand that deeply. So, yeah, that opportunity is really, really large.
Samder, a quick word from you. I know ease of doing business is a very, very sort of broad brush topic, but anything that or any specific point within that you're focused on or your ministry is focused on at this point?
So the plan is, even like if you look at the launch of Digital India, the purpose is to bring more and more people on the digital platform. Because if we go digital, this helps us in scaling the process and reducing the time in the operational cycle. So there's one major initiative, and if you look at how UID project was helpful, and based on that platform, so the platform approach now the new government is taking, I think, is definitely a great initiative towards this one.
Okay, Sharad, last word from you. Where can this innovation happen? What are the one or two things that we all collectively need to focus on to ensure that things get moving, including, of course, ease of doing business, and for young entrepreneurs and or not so young entrepreneurs wanting to do something different or new, what should they be looking out for?
Yeah, if you come to Bangalore on 22nd, you'll see this in action. Honestly, I mean,
yeah.
You will see somebody's invented a way to print on chocolates, for heaven's sake, right? And if that doesn't catch your fancy, look at this electric scooter that this team has built, which looks very promising. But then, if that doesn't catch your fancy, then look at this group of 30 people who are taken this modest challenge of sending a rover to the moon, landing it there and driving it 500 meters, doing experiments and sending the data back. And this is real. So they are, you'll see the lander and the rover in that InnoFest on 22nd. You can touch it if they let you touch it. I don't know whether they would, but you get the idea. I mean, here are 30 people who come together to literally land something in the moon. And if that happens, and the world tends to believe that these people are at least, amongst the top 3 that are there, perhaps some people, New York Times said, perhaps the furthest along than anybody else, then think of it, a group of 30 people would have come and landed something in space, a soft landing, before our most successful government organization, ISRO, has been able to do that, right? So the possibilities are enormous, and that potential you have to come and see on the 22nd in Bangalore, because that is what would invigorate you, and that would give you this feeling that there is potential for New India, and a New India will emerge, and perhaps it will emerge from Bangalore, although Jas and Anu will beat me up for saying that. But
yeah, but you forget, Sharad, I'm sitting in Mumbai, so yeah. Anyway, no, great, Sharad. I think points well taken, and thank you all for coming together and pooling your thoughts on what's sort of missing and what's more importantly what's there as India builds its entire innovation ecosystem, both for young and old, as we find new opportunities, new problems to solve, and the coming together of everyone obviously serves as a great platform to invigorate and provide the right triggers to take on those next challenges, or the really big challenges. Thank you so much for being with us on the India Hangout. We'll be back soon.